It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Big roll call.
Brown,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Britt,
Here.
Starkey,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Nail.
Here. Next will be a motion to approve the agenda, and there's one addition under new business is the office printer.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I asked that the board consider adding the board master calendar to the agenda just for it being added for the record. Katie spent an enormous amount of time on this that would be great benefit to the board.
Add that under.
If I could.
Take a motion to approve the agenda with those additions.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from the previous meeting? If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as presented. Announce the visitors.
Welcome. Great to see you guys. Thank you for being here. Okay, well, it is great. Yeah.
Was there any public comments in? So there was none. We move on to officers report, chief report.
Welcome to our new classroom. Tables are empty, you can see they're not falling over like the last one, so definitely an improvement. Good to see everybody tonight. I've got on page pretty short and sweet. Last week was spent a couple days out of the office, and the other day we did some interviewing for PRN staff, so not a whole lot going on. Just to date volume for the month, we're up to 545 as of about noon today. That's total calls. The operational transfer care procedural changes, that's just stuff we're continued over from last time. We're still, making amendments to, or amending procedures as needed to deal with the pandemic winding down in Pettis County, hopefully winding down. As far as standard operating guidelines or clinical protocols, I'm not going to steal Dr. Gustafson's thunder, but we're working on implementing this fast ED stroke assessment tool, and I'm going to let Dr. Gustafson speak on that for his report. No major equipment issues. I don't have any updates on mileage until our, of course, the first meeting of the month is when the mileage is coming out on that. So moving on down, I've got, we had a major failure of our DVR security reporting camera system. Just the DVR portion of it failed at headquarters. So that has had to be replaced. As far as any software virus protection, I had mentioned before, we were planning on an early June meeting, hopefully trying around everybody that's got a stake in the game together about the second week of June for some risk analysis procedure stuff that we can do on an annual basis, set up on a schedule to get it a little more fine-tuned. As far as community public relations, last week was EMS week. Last year's EMS week was a wash for obvious reasons. This week was a nice change, though. We kind of slowly eased ourselves back into having a little bit of EMS week. Mostly everybody cooked, went out and got some food, shared some food. Bothwell got some Subway sandwiches for us. We really enjoyed that. But we kept everything pretty low key, just because we're not quite out of the woods on this yet. But we were able to still, like I said, share some meals and do a little bit of visiting. I put in my report the area agencies that all participate in this. Of course, any EMS agencies, which I loop everybody into that. EMS is emergency medical services, so we're looking at helicopters, ground EMS, flight, basically anybody around here. That's Bothwell. MU3, that's the helicopter here at Sedalia. Lifeline Eagle has a ship down in Clinton. Of course, the Windsor Ambulance District Board, they bought pizzas for all 3 shifts. Western Missouri Medical Center brought down some cookies, and all the area hospitals in Kansas City put out stuff for EMS to enjoy throughout the week as they brought patients in. So all in all, it wasn't a big event, but we made the best of it and it went well. So I think looking forward to next year, when things a little more normal. No big special projects. Pettis County Joint Communications, we're still looking at a go live date in a little over a month from now. So a lot of things gearing up in that regard. We're still doing mandatory training. Tomorrow is actually our 3rd of 3 classes for that same scheduled mandatory training for our crews, which is covering delayed sequence intubations and some other advanced airway procedures. Our EMTs and paramedics all participate in that because it is a group effort whenever there's a major airway procedure like that. So no big purchases or contracts. Personnel, we don't have any COVID illnesses or absence right now. Like I said, the interviews, we did get done with those just last one was Thursday. We're waiting some pre-employment screening results on about 6 PRN EMT positions. That will hopefully cut down any kind of overtime our staff is getting right now, so we can spread that out a little bit amongst some PRN EMTs who are coming up as soon as they're out of orientation. Orientation for most of them, depending on what kind of experience they had. If some of them were actually students here, some of them have done ride-alongs here before, so they've got a leg up on orientation. But we still look at about 80 to anywhere from 80 to 100 hours to be fully oriented, where they're functional, operational on the trucks, where they can work safely by themselves with a paramedic partner. That is. No FMLA issues. We do have, I guess I could go ahead and announce here, we have one paramedic whose wife just had a baby. Kevin Core and his wife just had a good, healthy baby last week. So all things well there. I hope to have some more to report on that next time. We are looking at setting up a labor management meeting. This is something that we're contractually bound to, and we've all just kind of, it's like herding cats, but I think we'll probably have that set up here in the next couple of weeks to actually meet with them. And we've been discussing just some working issues, nothing major, just things that we can improve upon as far as, both sides bringing ideas to the table. So it's really just an ideas meeting at this point, kind of sort things out. Promotion or demotion. I'm hoping that Tina Plain shows up here in a few minutes. She said she was going to be over here at 6:15, so I might talk a little slower for the rest of my report if I can coordinate that. However, I did have an item that wasn't in here, but it was in the newspaper. The Noonday Optimist Club did present an EMT award to EMT of the Year award to Davita Birch last week, I believe. Mr. Davis was out there. It was very limited. They only allowed 3 people to go. So Roy's known Davita for many, many years. So he and Davita's husband, who also works here, Nick Birch, all went out and were presented that award, and then a nice dinner in Noonday Optimist along with several other area responders. It started out, Noonday Optimist does this, it's called the Respect for Law Banquet, and it's kind of spread out into emergency services, EMA, basically the whole entire group of what I've always said all along, what I consider to be emergency services in Pettis County. It was a nice event from what I hear, and hopefully next year we'll open up a little bit more like everything else. That is all for my report, and I guess we can kind of, if you wouldn't mind, just bumping Tina in here at some point.
She is
that suits the board. Okay. All right. That's all I have on.
Are there any questions for her? If not, we'll move on to the CFO report.
Okay, mine starts on page, I believe that's 4. The audit's getting started. They have the engagement letters and get that going. They have the information for a week or 2 now. But I don't believe they're started on that. So the engagement letter says it'll be done by the end of June. So
I'm sorry, the firm doing that again.
it's Copperhead, CHB, used to be Warren. So on page 4 is the bank balances as of last Thursday in the previous meeting, so up a little bit, due to just our ebb and flow of the months. And then May 20th, 21 versus May 20th, 2020 is up about 844,000. Next page 5 is the cash reserve analysis. Again, up just slightly there over last board meeting. Check register is 678. Do any of them questions on any of those transactions? And then the monthly billing report is also in here. And again, probably a little hard to read in places. You do have the digital copy emailed to you. If you want to look at that for something you can't read in the printed report. So in about 2 months, we'll have a full 12 months with the billing company. So we'll have a better picture here of, you know, our cash per trip for the year. Our average cash per trip. and things. Any questions on any of those? I put in your report here, the GEMT report again. I think we've got a couple new board members since this report was presented. The state auditing firm, Myers and Stauffer, has reviewed it and issued the IGT requirements. So just a refresher or for the new board members, how this works is we report what our costs were for the year as well as our revenue, and then we get reimbursed for a portion of that cost that we were not reimbursed for originally for Medicaid. So if you look at page 31, it's like page 14. The bottom there, you will see the net cost of transports, $217,038.97. And then you'll see the non-federal share reduction. So that $74,701.21 is what we pay over to the state, and we'll receive $217,038.97 back for a net of the $142,337. So we're for Medicaid calls, we're about $221 in the red as far as cost versus reimbursement per actual transfer. So that's what that whole 17 pages of reporting gets you to. So,
Let's just let Mark stop.
but this is a state. This is actually a state one.
This
Yeah.
is a statement.
Yeah, this is a state.
So it's a question, does all the ambulance districts, does it pool everything in like hospitals, or pool all the Medicaid from all the different participants? So,
And, you know, unfortunately, Steve, there's some smaller districts not being able to meet those capture costs that you pay up front.
mhm,
And that's been sort of a disappointment for a lot of those districts. So
mhm.
thank you, Jamie, for this work. I want to say.
Yeah, and, you know, when you look at this, remember that this is done on a different year end than our financials, so you're not gonna, if you look at the 12/31 financials, they're not gonna tie to this, because this is June to, or July to June, where our financials are January through December. So it's all in there, it's just different time periods. Any other questions on that? The last couple of pages of your packet are the current bills. The details are on the last 2 pages there. 36 and 37. Is there any questions? on any of that? If not, that is the end of our books.
Was this the first year that you guys did the Medicaid cost report? And was this
No, it's the second year.
second year?
It's only been available for 3 years. The first year was, we just didn't have data to be able to do that.
Right.
On that first year, so.
And was this a similar result as a year ago? Or?
This is a
Little
lot
better.
higher. This is about double. But they've, this is the third year the state has done it, so they're still learning as well. They're making changes. They just made some changes to the rules. About 2 days before it was due, actually. So they're gonna give us some training on that in June sometime. So I actually expect to have some additional maybe from last year. There was some reporting that they based this report on, that they tie it to. It's the Medicaid system reports that we don't have access to. So to be able to tie those two together, I think there might be some differences in their data versus our data tied into things. So,
They use their actual claims data.
yes. Yep.
And in discussion with Jamie, she learned me that, if we were ever to see Medicaid expansion, that this wouldn't go away, that the GDP would probably go up the way it's calculated.
Are there any other questions for Jamie? If not, I believe Tina's there.
Yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind circling back to my report just for one little item here. I wanted to introduce Tina to everybody, Tina Plain, everybody. I'm just gonna read this, and then I'm gonna say a couple things. So, what this is a certificate of appreciation from Pettis County EMS Board of Directors to travel forward with a certificate for your successful completion of the NRMT and state government licensure. The board recognizes your accomplishments and your dedication to the since 2014. So, Tina was in our very first EMT class here. We stole her away from dispatch with communication specialist down in Benton County. And she's been with us pretty much full time since 2015. Ground patch. So,
My lovely instructor.
yes, she was perfect. She was our very first EMT class, and she was one of our first people who ever signed up for the class. So congratulations.
Thank you. I don't see shift now.
See, yeah,
I've been an A shifter since day one.
Yeah.
I just recently got booted.
You got recruited, I think is the right word.
yeah. It's gonna be there a lot.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Take a motion to approve payment of outstanding bills.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All opposed, same sign. Medical director's report.
Yeah, good evening. Kind of a continuation from what Chief was talking about there with the stroke exam. We had been using a very simple four test evaluation for stroke patients. And it doesn't do a very good job of separating patients that need sophisticated stroke care versus those that really don't. But this new stroke assessment tool that we're going to implement will help differentiate folks with that really need a level 1 stroke center versus those that we can bring here locally and have them treated here locally, so that there's less gray area in terms of the medic having to make a decision. Well, do I go here or I do go there? This kind of gives a numeric value that will help them to make that distinction and get the patients where they need to go or where they can go and get appropriate care. The other thing, we're doing also a revision of our trauma assessment tool. there are lots of folks who have injuries that can be technically designated as trauma, but they don't need a trauma center. They could very easily be handled by our folks that we have here in terms of our general surgeons and our orthopedic fellows. And so what we're doing, if there's no neurologic impairment that might need a neurosurgeon, if there's no extensive orthopedic injury as defined by the CDC field triage, and if there's no chest or abdomen injury that would likely involve a vascular surgeon, we're going to bring them here locally. And that would be like your hip fractures, sports injuries, you know, things that can easily be handled by our orthopedic folks here, can easily be handled by the surgeons that we have on staff at Bothwell. And hopefully, this will better manage the patients that we can have treated here, and not take them down the road, as has happened in the past in some cases. So I look forward to getting both of these implemented, and we'll be monitoring to see how it works out, and we'll go from there. Anyone on the board have any questions for me? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Doc.
We'll move on to unfinished business and the Windsor Mowing.
1 minute. Good one. There was actually kind of what would happen to the gentleman that mows the church next door. We will do it for $30. That's the one that we got. Put it out there for a while. So it's pretty reasonable rate. The yard's pretty good size. There's a lot of trim work and stuff. So I probably would do it for $30. But that's the only one. So, yeah, that was put out through a lot of feelers through the Windsor board and just anybody who kind of ask for rain. That's all they come up.
What's the name of that? Person's name or?
2 seconds.
Okay.
A little more. 2 seconds.
Mr. Chairman, if I was looking for that, remind me what discussion and will we arrive at the board with regard to an individual like this? You know, a lot of times we require people to carry insurance to perform their duties on our property. So are we going to waive that in this situation? Which, I mean, I have no problem doing it. I just won't have a discussion about it because it's always been something we don't let it big deal. It's no grass.
His name's Austin Buffer. Probably butchering that last name, but he also does snow removal. And I may have other information on other than cost. Match the fact that does snow removal. So I get some more information on that, but that's.
Is there any discussion?
You know, $30 a week, that's, and we can't buy the type of insurance that we require here, but I can't see that being, I can't see it being an issue. If you want to pay $150 a week, then we guys could do it. So
Exactly. You're correct, Mr. Miller.
Still, I had a short conversation with him, just do it after. Golf pretty short or anything.
They're trusting with God's property. Good enough on office.
So
I'd like to make a motion that we give Eric permission to call this gentleman and ask him to still like to mow that Windsor and Sister's property this summer for us at $30 for a week, $30 per month.
$30.
and waive Insurance.
and waive the insurance requirement.
Assuming we carry liability insurance on this.
Will we be setting this up in the future for other properties where they don't need insurance?
Those,
If, like the high school boys trying to make a little extra money, there's college, he says, I'll do it for $50 or whatever. So, I mean, if we do it, we're kind of setting it up where
I mean, and I agree with you, totally, Mr. Nail. The issue was, again, something that I'm going to discuss when we get to this next resolution that we may talk about tonight, is that there's oftentimes that we seek to follow the path that we legally need to follow to seek bids for somebody's services. We advertise in the Democrat. That can sometimes extend $100. And then we get no responses. And that was the situation here, that we took an alternate avenue. I would rather go this avenue than having our paramedics out there running the mower during the summer, because it's just not their job. And that's my opinion, so.
is there for a legal angle if it's a business, a mowing business that does a lot. I mean, they're more likely insured and bonded or whatever. Whereas an individual isn't likely to necessarily need that.
can't afford.
So is that the distinction here?
Right, and we would be, and what would the insurance we're talking about is, what if that individual damaged Pettis County Ambulance District property? That's the concern we're talking about here. And I mean, that has happened with our people that mows. It happened out here at Station 2. Guy mowing got into the tops of or coverage of the septic system and did some, several $100 worth of damage. That's the protection that I'm asking to be waived. Throws a rock, breaks a window,
So if he throws a rock and derails a train, that's not our problem.
not on our property. That is not on our.
It's gonna end up as a
I'm not an attorney, and I just, the board can act on the motion on the floor. It's the best thing we do, because I think I just see a greater liability having someone that, that we're paying tens of thousands of dollars a year to save lives after pushing along over 98 degrees. It's tough.
And if I can add something, just a small thing in my conversations with Mr. Foster, what Mr. Fritz is saying, we have a responsibility to seek those bids and do due diligence, but in the absence of them, there's 100 tiny little ambulance districts out there who just don't have that.
Okay.
And that's perfectly acceptable as long as you try to do it.
And the grass around this building is generally cut by our battalion chief when it's necessary. So we no longer have the big property, but in Station 2, so.
Yes.
Another thing in Windsor, we don't own that property. So that takes the liability off of us.
It's fair.
So
Yes, absolutely.
with these others, we do own and have to be responsible for.
Well, I want to thank the board for the discussion about that, because it was something that I wanted everybody to be sure to talk about.
There's a motion on the floor to accept that bid and waive the insurance requirements. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Bay window replacements.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think some of the board members are aware of a gentleman that came and looked at the window, bid it to the ad in the building. Gentleman's been a glazer in the business up in Kansas City for decades. And he believed the bid we received was a reasonable bid, and that the additional money to take out the windows, which we believe that whoever is going to be doing our replacement, our windows on this building, they're gonna be responsible for taking the old ones out because there's just too much plumbing and electrical and brick facade for us to worry about managing. So we're not to do that ourselves, the chief is indicating. So that additional amount to the bid, it comes out to around $11,000. Again, I mean, they're the only local people that do this. Now, Mr. Durkis came up with a pretty good idea, and I talked with Andrew Trimmer today about the possibility of putting some solar insulated glass blocks in the windows. He'd be willing to install it. He's gonna give us a bid to look at the whole thing, and we'll have something next week for that, that avenue, that's road to go down as far as that possibility. The glass he's talking about is actually some glass that Pittsburgh Corning has on the second floor on the south side of the building. You can look out and see the solar glass block that they do use. So that's another possibility to see if we can get, because I mean, the issue is this, is the sunshine coming in creates the additional heat during the summer, where it provides a real nuisance for Mr. Newsom in keeping his equipment running. And that's the issue. I mean, the cold, hell, we open up the door, the cold rushes in, the insulation factor is going to be the same as we have now. But the degree of cutting down that south sun is the objective that we have to look at. So, thank you for the time.
Just table this.
Yes,
Additional information.
yes, if we could, please. And he did say, excuse me, he did say that, I asked him, he said he would be available, that if the board agreed to something that he would offer us as an option, he could get to it in September. It's a little long, but he's pretty busy.
Table that till the next meeting and should have some additional information. Gov Deals refrigerator update.
So I reached out to Frank Foster. We were asking about something else. I asked him about the refrigerator. And he said, the board cannot donate the refrigerator to anyone, according to the Attorney General's office. You do not have to bid it or auction it, which we already have done. So we've shown due business diligence, that's his words, for getting rid of that refrigerator, but we cannot just donate that. So you can sell the refrigerator for a nominal amount, as long as we sell it as is with no express or implied for it.
I just my thought, I mean, this refrigerator got a problem. It is so noisy that during important times, they want to watch TV, they set a timer and unplug that refrigerator when it's being used. So it's too noisy. It's just, I don't know what the resolution for that thing is, but it sounds like an airplane island.
Well, if we're not able to donate it, choice to jump.
Well,
I mean, I think donate it for a nominal fee, you could sell it for $1.
I know a purchaser for $1. I mean, I'm not gonna, not be silent. As I know that there's at least one entity that's a public safety entity that would probably deserve it, probably would put it to good use. That an entity that we participate with every year, Missouri State Fair, at their fire station. But again, I mean, they weren't prepared to pay $100 or $200 for it at the time, so they don't have that. I don't know how the board wants to do that, but we have refrigerators sitting there, we just need to make sure we do the very best for the taxpayers.
Versus Missouri State Fair operates under our license.
Correct. And we don't charge it for that. That's a very, very big thing we do for the Missouri State Fair is everybody, our license is hanging there for all medical operations that are conducted and what the doctor does on the fairgrounds in the event that we were, something bad were to happen. So it's huge exposure.
So why don't we just move it out there?
Yeah,
Retain ownership.
That is a discussion that is absolutely an option that we could move it out there to locate. We take ambulances out there and we leave them out there for 3 weeks for use. So I don't, that's a very good idea. Would they mind if we drop it off out there? Okay. Yeah, and I know Roy, often Roy takes his vacation to manage the operation. out there for us,
So we do have a very big refrigerator to use during the Thursday.
so. You would, those ladies would be happy about that.
Do you have room for it?
I believe they have them for it. They had actually called, they heard that it was up for auction. They called about, they didn't know it was on go, so they called about after that. I told them it's not gonna be listening. They don't. They said they weren't prepared to go that far with it. So I don't think they ever actually will. But they know it's there and they did express it.
I would move that we store that refrigerator out there at the fairgrounds.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Good resolution. Resolution to commit the funds from the sale of 16th Street property.
I'll be glad to start us off. I was absent in some discussion about this, but in previous discussion, we have an existing fund, a building fund with a label. But to put any meaningful purpose in what this board does for the future, not to bind other board, but to give us a direction, I'd like to introduce the resolution that's based on standards that are set forth in this resolution to commit $714,000 to our building fund under this resolution, as it says, that's for $715,000 to be used for this large capital purchases. And I just think it gives us a solid direction for us to move forward with our strategic plan. To offer this tonight. I think Jamie can attest to the fact that there's been some discussion about the best way to earn money on this. And just because we put it in a building fund, we could still have the best rate. We can still pursue the best rate. And I think Jamie might be prepared with information. If not, she'll be prepared here the next day or so. Did they get back with you?
Yes, so I inquired with the two banks that we do business with currently as far as what interest rates are on certificates of deposit currently. Whitney Houston provided a rate of 0.85% for either an 11 or 15-month certificate of deposit. And Central Bank was 0.15%. That's for 1 year rate. 5%. And currently,
The other one was what?
0.85.
Is Jamie, now that we have in excess of 250,000 at Houston with Houston, and then excess obviously at third, the FDIC rule does not cover us, correct? So what is the advantage with third or established general operating there at third? What advantage would that be as far as making sure that if, for instance, a bank failed, that does happen. So explain to us how maybe we might have additional protection at third. Is that
They have collateral pledged against our deposits.
okay?
We don't have over 250,000 at Windsor Mowing currently. So we would have to double check with them on that process.
Have we looked into doing other banks
I just emailed the two that we,
too? But maybe we couldn't do it through.
No,
No.
not at all. I'm totally agree with that. Are you, Steve?
Totally.
Sean? Sean?
I'm not sure that I'm not convinced the wisest thing is to put it away for you. I mean, if we were talking last time about, a few times ago, about some sites, and looking at different places. You know, I'd like to see that money from that land that we've had for a number of years turned into a station.
Right, and that's what I was talking about. We currently have a fund established, I mean, it's set there, it's got $18,000 in it currently. We could, I keep calling it third, but central, we could go do it as central with this resolution, or we could come back and wait. You know, the resolution from my perspective is nothing more than a commitment of this board to move forward in that direction and officially announce to the folks of Pettis County what we're doing.
And it's not tying it up for a year.
No,
Well, you
if
could,
you,
you could ask and say, could we commit to this, but is there gonna be an early withdrawal penalty?
and there
And there
will
will be.
Yeah.
It
Well,
should be
sometimes they may waive that.
be. Yeah, and it's not, and Steve, it's not, I mean, it's not, we're not talking huge money,
No, but
but it's still there. You're absolutely right.
You said these were interest rates on CDs, right?
And
Do we know the interest rate?
it'll take 11 months for us to get to that point.
Yeah, I've never been involved in that, so I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know how long it takes to
Yeah, I
do something
know.
like that.
I guess, I don't know either, but as we start the process, it's gonna take time.
You know,
And I
land's
think,
not getting any cheaper.
correct. And I think Mr. Dirk is working on the timeline to provide the board of his expectations that if the board went in this direction, what type of process, and you're familiar with Steve very well.
and you don't need to commit it all in one CD, you split it up and then, you know, read two for the duration. You might get it wrong.
And-
Start.
Correct.
And just because, I mean, it's not that you're saying this dollar right here, you have to spend, it's, you're saying $715,000 can come out of any of the accounts, it's just.
We could have three different building funds, three different things.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I think these those are most interesting, yes. What, you want those to do, most of them?
And to address your question, we do receive interest on all of our accounts at Central currently. And the rate there last month, it was 0.11% is what we received on our checking accounts. So not much less than what their offer is.
Well, from what I wrote down, 0.11 was higher than what you said 0.85% on one of those CDs.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
be.
Okay.
So 0.11 is-
Yeah, I think what we get is like 4/10 something over prime.
Well, so, okay, so if we get the $700,000, I mean, if we just put that in two banks, that's obviously over $250,000 in each bank.
Well, we have collateral pledged at Central Bank for our entire balance. So it's not a problem with Central Bank. It's the other banks that,
I'm sure they do that.
oh, I'm sure they will too. But
Be happy, they'd be happy to.
the resolution is separate from where we put the money, move the money.
So what's is that a motion?
Yeah,
I'm a little confused on what the resolution is specifically. It has nothing to do with the money. Where the account stands for.
no, it just has to do with the use of the funds. Designated use of the funds.
Go over your motion again. So you guys clear, John.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce a motion, resolution 2021, number 5. For resolution committing the fund balance in the amount of $715,000. Ask that the board be prepared hopefully next week with information Jamie to choose the banks and how they divvy it up, but I'd like the amount to equal As the resolution indicates, $715,000.
Is there a second for that? Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, so, I mean, this resolution, the purpose of this resolution is just to inform the public of our intentions. We can submit another resolution if you wanted, if an opportunity arose unexpectedly, to use the money for something else that would be more beneficial, we could put forth that. Doesn't mean it's- okay.
Yes. We can undo it with another resolution.
Okay.
That's a very good question.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor of the resolution, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Move on to new business, the office printer.
Well, I think everybody's seen the reports.
Not really.
Well, should I say, seen the evidence? We have a big office printer over there that does, it's got over 300,000 copies. The bulk of that printing is done on 8.5 by 11 sheets. We are having some issues with coloring, though. We really don't do that much color printing on it. It's just worn out. What I've got, I've only got one option on this right now, so I'm not suggesting we automatically just take the first thing that comes along, but it's just some information as far as what it would take to fix the existing printer over there, which is, in my experience with those printers, once you start doing major overhauls to them, it's kind of like an ambulance. It gets so many 100 miles, if you get so many miles on it, you've got to keep seeing maintenance bills like that. We've had this particular one, I believe it's going on, I believe it was a used unit when we got it, and we've had it about a little over 4 years right now, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, out of the 300,000 copies of it, probably roughly 2/3 of that is just basically board materials. So there's a lot of things we can do up there with that printer that can't be done on just a normal, office or a normal printer. The stapling, collating, front and back printing. The option that the office business equipment gave us actually does hole punching and stapling and all kinds of nifty stuff. The printer cartridges for that particular model, Ryan actually looked into this afternoon. They're a little bit more than what we're paying right now, by about 20 to 30% more than what we're paying right now. However, I don't know how much further those cartridges will last. Generally, a newer printer is more efficient and does a better job. The printer that he suggested does not have a 17-inch tray in it, which we do have now, but we've only ran about 317-inch copies in existence of it, so it's a drill we don't need. So that's one thing we knocked off that new printer at his suggestion. We do need the finishing stuff, the finishing materials on there, the stapling, hole punching, not necessarily, but stapling is certainly big deal as far as the collating goes. I don't know how much life is left in that printer. It's pretty awful, as we've seen in the past probably 2-3 months in board reports. We've kind of been limping along with some maintenance, but the entire module, he's got a list out there, what actually it's going to take to correct. It's on these maintenance kits, 3 different maintenance kits, and the labor is somewhere around $3,600, just over half of what the new one would cost. So that's where we stand right now as far as general costs. I don't think we're going to get that. Office business equipment has given us pretty much the best deals we can find on those quality printers, high quality printers. But I'd certainly want to look around before we commit to that. I'm thinking that it needs to be replaced.
I can get you a contact one for the ones that we use. They come here and they're here if you need it. So it's a Rico copier out of phone.
We use a couple different people too. Right? So that's actually, yeah.
I think Eric and Jamie were hoping to get into next year's budget, but
Do you know how many copies you make?
Just going by the math there, if we've had it 3 years and we put 300,000, or we've had it 4 years and put 300,000 on it, so that's probably what, around 75,000.
that's about the extent of the warranty. And it's,
Yeah, he's got 300,000 before, 300,000 copies.
is,
I figured it's looked at the
So-
yeah, that's how they establish it sometimes. Time to convince them.
And we do, we make black and white whenever possible. However, a lot of our educational materials have required color on them. Some of the board materials and the graphs, you wouldn't be able to tell which line's what without. There's not a lot of color goes into it. It is something I feel we need, and we do have, we've got some old printers that we've been repurposing for 8 years now that used to ride around in the back of ambulances. So we do make do with what we have as much as possible, but this is our main office printer. Oh.
Guess I would disagree with you on the necessarily. I mean, you might need some things for color, but for us on graphs, I mean, I did math worksheets for a long time with graphs, and you can dot dash, dotted. I mean, you can make the lines look different.
Okay.
And it's a whole lot easier to read for me if it's black as opposed to green or the red or any other kind of color. I would prefer ours to be in black.
And we can certainly do that. I guess my only point is the educational stuff that we have to do. We have to tell a vein from an artery, and you can't do that in grade school.
No,
I agree.
Yeah.
We can certainly.
but for us, I don't.
No, the iPads would be the most the paper-free solution would be.
Right. And this document here is, in my opinion, in a few months, going to be a very valuable insight to our reimbursements. You can't do this without color. It's impossible.
I don't understand why.
Well, when there's like 18 different colors on here, taking the time to get 18 different shades of black and white is not.
No.
Just to follow up, though, as far as cost goes, like I said, this is the only option I have right now. I don't know what between color and black and white. So.
And it's also, I know at our school, we could afford to buy them, so we would lease them from that outfit, Rico. And it was cheaper for us to let them take care of all the maintenance and service on it. So for us, and we weren't a big, teachers use a lot of paper, they make a lot of copies, but we looked at the numbers and it was cheaper for us to lease it than to buy it. So I don't know if you've looked into asking them what it costs to lease one.
No.
But I would
Literally
suggest
just got that information, so I certainly will. You know, if your guys' contacts, are they sales, do they also?
They do,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe about,
We leased and,
Everybody is.
yeah, and we just upped our leases. I mean, we stayed and we got advancements. So we,
how many you all manage on it?
Yeah, they do a collective purchasing agreement.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
I mean, the guys here, you need something easier that day. Let's hear in town.
it's
anyway.
good for us.
Yes. I'll get you that. And they do public interviews.
The main part of this is just to bring it to the board's attention.
Yeah, you need to.
So we'll have more information on the office printer in the next page. Options. The board calendar. You'll see that in your package.
Yeah, Katie, indicated, Katie went through the extensive level of this 3 pages of information. The neat thing that in addition to all the contact information is, a reminder or at a glance, we can look and see what things are coming up in the months ahead. and be prepared to make decisions, be prepared to commit the time as you, even as you look at November, the list gets long, so. But this is all the inclusive things that by statute, by state law, with other important dates, that would be good for our retention, so I thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to comment on this. In November, we had the insurance renewal for health and property and casualty. I believe last year when we did that, we ran into a deadline, January 1, on health insurance. And I'm not sure if that gives us necessarily enough time.
We don't get the information from them, that's the problem. It's not our plan. We don't get the bids from the insurance companies to, what usually is it, Jamie?
Well, actually, we should get the first one in
October,
October.
because of the new agreement.
So my
So that's just
suggestion
when
would
we
be,
make the decision.
Good.
The decision has to be made before we can finish the budget.
Right.
And I did see in this resolution that you put out that health insurance only really needs to be bid out every 3 years.
Just depending on costs and expenses.
so if we did this in November, you're satisfied we would have time to discuss it.
That's when we need to make a decision. on that, So we can get the budget.
Okay, so that is, it could be in October or September that we bring it. and start
Yeah,
discussing
October first is when it's been promised.
it. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it's more reiteration that, our annual audit report, I don't think it's gonna make it, so, but we'll see.
Is there any other discussion on the calendar?
Just a couple of questions. So your annual audit report is the first meeting.
It's when it's supposed to be done. I don't think it's ever been done.
So have they been here and audited you already? This is the audit report.
Yeah, no, I've sent them the information now.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a single
He has an
audit.
engagement letter right today, so no, they have not started. It will not be done.
And she queued up the information with the code to access it with a new code, so they have to contact her, they do not contact her. So she's pretty slick.
And who is your first, who's your intern over here?
Pat Thompson does the audit. She's not the partner, one of the partners of the firm is the audit. So last year, we got the report, I have to look at the date on it. I want to say July, so we provided our financial statements for the annual report to the state auditor. And then when we got the audit report revised with the audit.
Are there any other questions on the calendar?
Not just,
And if something we come up that needs added, we can always add it.
We'll move on to announcements. Needless District was able to close on the 16th Street property. The net proceeds of $714,345 to the district. Are there any other announcements?
If I may, go ahead.
just maybe again. So that property was purchased by the district with the intent of building a ground, correct? How much did we purchase that for?
So the total cost that we had in that property was $668,000.
Which how much?
$668,000.
Thank you.
Are Any other announcements?
Mr. Chairman, again, I just want to say thank you to the greatest asset of this district, our employees. It's always apparent to me, I get to see these folks in operation that they truly love us. We got to see tonight, Tina and her, excelling to become a paramedic for the district. Secondly, the other item that I just want to throw out on the table is that maybe we might look at, and the board is opposed to it, then they're opposed to it, but maybe joining a partnership with our union, 5229, Pettis County Ambulance District Board of Directors, and formally going through the paperwork and adopting a section of highway. That might be something you're opposed to or not, but if you're opposed, let me know and I'll stop my efforts on that cooperative effort now. So it's just something I'm just thinking about.
When you say adopt, you talk about cleanup?
Clean up, and then the highway department would organize with us on, I think, a couple times a year. The sign would go up that we maintain that highway free of trash and such. So I think many of us probably seen them alongside the roadway. I've just seen those with other fire departments and unions doing that.
I had two things. One is we used to have the long-term plan on here. And I think we still need to maintain.
Strategic.
Yeah, I still think we need to eventually have something. The other thing is on my new board policy manual or board manual that I wanted to put all this stuff together. I haven't forgotten it, I just haven't worked on it much. But I wanted to ask Chief, would Katie be the logical one to kind of work through and help me put it in a form, and then she can help collect since she's in the office?
I believe so, yeah, she's got access to all that, and she can probably, I don't want to volunteer for anything, but yes, logically, I think she has access to all those.
We'd just be gathering information, pieces of paper, so that we know the ins and outs of what's happening.
Then I have a question. You all sent out an email, I think it was you, with the board training, the 28th, 29th, and 30th. Is there going to be any more in-person board trainings?
Yes.
Have you already looked at?
The one that was made for, well, that was May 1st.
May
This
1st,
is
she said,
May.
yeah,
Yeah, and it was full.
there may be.
And then I'd like to go to, but that's when we start our audit, is the 20th.
Yeah.
So,
I send them as we get notified of the
Right.
trainings.
I'll do some checking.
There's been several opportunities.
Yes.
I would rather spend one Saturday as opposed to 3 nights for 3 hours.
You learn, I did it, I've done it in the classroom, and it's in about 20 people, and it's well worth your time.
Are there any other announcements?
I'll get thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
So,
All.
uh,